All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this very important Gather Round Justice Big Table conversation. My name is Joshua Gunn. I am the president and CEO of the Peoria Area Chamber of Commerce and CEO Council. We are honored to continue to be partners in this important work through the Big Table. This is a regional effort, and we are grateful for the chance to support this effort and be a part of what will undoubtedly be another wonderful conversation. We have some great, outstanding panelists today. We're going to talk a little bit about, or a lot about, HR and organizational policy, specifically around diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is a topic that for me has been a bit of my life's work, so I'm excited to hear the conversation and learn from our esteemed panelists. We're going to talk about the things that businesses can do and organizations can do to not only hire more diverse staff and empower more diverse staff, but to create a culture that is conducive to retaining diverse talent. We all know that diverse teams are more productive teams, diverse businesses are more successful, and our world is becoming increasingly more diverse, and ensuring that we have an equitable economy is a priority for this region and is essential to ensuring that we have a prosperous future for our nation and specifically for the Peoria region. So I could talk to you all for hours about this topic, but fortunately you don't have to listen to me today. You have some great panelists and a phenomenal moderator in Brian Ray. Brian Ray is the market president for Central Illinois at PNC Bank. PNC has been on, as Brian will tell you, a 20-year journey in addressing diversity issues at their organization and really making diversity a top priority for them, not only from a hiring standpoint, but from a culture change standpoint, and supporting diversity initiatives inside their organization and in the community at large. So we are grateful for Brian's willingness to moderate today. And without further ado, I'd like to present Brian Ray, our moderator for the afternoon. Brian?
Thank you, Joshua. I appreciate that. And fortunately for everybody else, you took about half my comments, so this will be brief. It really is an honor to be the moderator for today's discussion around the HR and organizational policies. As you mentioned, PNC Bank has been on a very intentional journey as it relates to diversity and inclusion for just over 20 years. As long as that might sound, really, it's just scratching the surface. In that time, we have found that attracting, recruiting, and retaining a diverse workforce is absolutely essential to our success, providing us with a wealth of skills and ideas and differences of opinions. The differences is where it all comes together, which really increases the employee engagement and tying us closer to the communities that we serve. Embracing D&I, as Josh stated, is more than just adding a token minority to your staff. It is a true culture change. It's a shift. It's not just about who your employees are, but expands to who are your customers? Who are you seeking to do business with? Who are your suppliers? What organizations do you support? What's the makeup of your board, of your executive committee? It's about ongoing training for our employees, celebrating culture awareness opportunities, and intentionally creating support groups like EBRGs that really support employees with a shared heritage, gender, orientation, background into intergenerational connections that they would never have otherwise. I'm really proud to be part of an organization that has made this intentional, and I've said that a couple times, and I've said it and driven that change into our individual markets, and yet given us as the regional executives the ability to invest in our communities as we see fit, as our communities are so different. Ours is an organization that has diversity and inclusion as its own business segment. We provide an annual report on D&I, and I'm happy to send that out to anybody who'd like to see it offline. Enough about PNC. Today, we have an incredible panel that's going to go through a number of topics and questions to discuss their own journey. And please keep in mind, this is meant to be a discussion, not a presentation. The only way that works is for you to participate. So, with that said, let's get a brief introduction for each of our panelists. We'll start with Laraine Bryson, who's the president of the Tri-County Urban League. Laraine?
Thank you very much, Brian. As Brian said, I'm the president of the Urban League. I'm a native Peorian, and I've been the CEO here at the Urban League for the past 27 years. But actually, the Urban League has been a part of my life for the past 41 years. And that began as a client receiving services in our summer jobs program. I got my first job here at the Urban League and grew up 6 blocks from here. I've also been a work study student here at the Urban League, a board member, vice president, and then ascended into the presidency. I've also worked as the first director of affirmative action at Illinois Central College and ran their human resources department for a short period. And I was a trial attorney for the St. Louis District Office of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission.
Is that it, Laraine?
That's it.
Pretty amazing career. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And now on to Tom Alexander, who's co-founder and CEO at Holistic.
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much, Brian, and thanks to the other panelists. And I agree, very impressive background, Laraine. I wish I would have gone first. Yeah, my career has been mostly in government and nonprofit work. I worked in the mayor's office and the governor's office here in Chicago, and then most recently at 1871, the technology incubator here in town. Before I founded Holistic 2.5 years ago, co-founded Holistic. Holistic is a technology company, and our goal is to really do people analytics, to put data behind the things that we're talking so much about these days: diversity, inclusion, equity, fairness, advancement, consistency of treatment. And so that's what we've been doing. We've been at it for about 2.5 years, and it's going pretty well, and it's been very fun and interesting, and definitely interesting times. My big tie to Peoria is that I've been involved in the Distillery Labs effort for about the last year, helping kind of think about the possibilities and promise of what will be a remarkably exciting facility and really, you know, kind of community hub in every sense of the word. And so it's been great to get to know a lot of the folks at Peoria, including a lot of the people associated with the chamber. And so I'm excited to be here.
Great, thanks, Tom, so much. And we're certainly looking forward to, you know, your input at Distillery Labs. I mean, you've kind of been there, done that, and you've created something great up in Chicago. So we look forward to your assistance here. Last but not least is Eric Sutter, who's Senior Vice President of HR at Epic. Eric?
Thanks. Yeah, my name is Eric Sutter, and again, I've been at Epic, which Epic, for you guys, we formerly were known as Park. We are celebrating our 70th anniversary this year. Epic stands for Empowering People, Inspiring Capabilities. I've been fortunate to be with this organization, like I said, over 33 years. I started out in the 80s, like I just needed a job. I never knew how much this job would change my life, and supporting people with intellectual disabilities, I think puts us into an advantage with diversity, because we're always advocating for the people that we support to have the same rights that you and I do. So I'm looking forward to sharing our story here at Epic, and I'm just glad to be part of this conversation.
Great, thanks so much, Eric. Well, we certainly appreciate, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no problem.
I need to interrupt for a brief commercial break, and that is because I forgot to show the commercial in the beginning. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna veer from the program for just one moment. We are, of course, the Gather Around Justice series is a part of the Big Table, which is a large convening that we do each year. And fresh off the presses, you all will be the first to see our 2020 Big Table promo. So Brian, if you'll indulge us, we'd like to share the video before we enter into our conversation. Is that okay?
This is your show, Joshua.
Oh, thank you. Audrey will cue up the video. The Big Table promotes regional community building through conversations designed to strengthen and connect communities to make the greater Peoria region a better place to live, work, and play. Last year, over 700 community members from across the region participated in the Greater Peoria Big Table. This year, we are taking the conversation even farther. We are committed to a larger and brighter vision for our future.
As a community, we are dedicated to bringing the Big Table to you in 2020.
This year may look different, but we're committed to connecting our region virtually.
Join us October 19th to October 22nd from 11:30 to 1 p.m. The event is broken into 4 separate sections, split by topic. Feel free to join us for just one or for all 4.
Session topics will include diversity, equity, and inclusion, workforce and education, innovation and entrepreneurship, and quality of life and place.
Quality of life is for all communities. Together, we will discuss discovering our community to build a better, more vibrant region.
We are an innovative and entrepreneurial community, and there is so much potential right here in our region.
Together, we can build on current initiatives. Our region is well positioned to encourage new businesses, to foster economic growth, and to retain local talent, despite the current pandemic.
A diverse and inclusive community helps foster a positive culture in order for us to have meaningful and valuable conversations.
We started a series on social justice and racial equity and are continuing those important conversations. We are committed to bringing a positive change to our region. We'll see you at the Big Table.
Based on a survey of regional businesses, the CEO Council established that workforce development was the #1 need in our community. Based on that survey result, the Regional Workforce Alliance was established.
Our region has shown its resiliency and creativity in education. Discuss with us how to build a brighter future for our youth.
Discuss with us how we can develop and retain talent while making our region a desirable landing place for outside talent.
In the midst of this pandemic, small business development and entrepreneurship is going to be even more important. Come and join us and learn how Distillery Labs is going to be a big part of this future.
We need your voice at the table.
Connect.
Discuss.
Inspire.
Take action.
The conversation needs your voice.
Thank you, Audrey, and thank you, Brian, and our esteemed panelists for indulging our commercial break. We hope to see you all during the Big Table. This gives me a chance to remind you that we are recording the session for everyone on, and please put any questions in the chat, and our team will get the questions to our moderator to include some of your questions during the discussion. Thank you very much. We'll take it away, Brian.
Thanks so much. That was actually a really nice commercial break. It was nice to see so many friends on there. So Big Table is where it all started last year. It's kind of what this grew out of. So I think that was a very appropriate commercial intervention right there. Thanks, Joshua. Okay, so back to our panelists, talking about HR and organizational change and policies. So Laraine, we're going to start with you. What we're going to do this like we've done in each of the previous two. So we have a couple questions that we're going to ask each of the panelists, and then we're going to get into sort of a community discussion towards the end. So I'm going to start with you, Laraine, if that's all right.
Fine.
So who are your clients? Help us understand who are your clients and how do you help them seek employment?
Well, the Urban League serves the entire community. We are Tri-County, so we are Peoria, Tazewell, and Woodford County. But predominantly, we serve low-income and disadvantaged people. And these are oftentimes individuals who have never held a job or their work history is quite limited. We often, after we serve someone, we end up hiring some of our clients. And because we know that once you feel a part of our family, you're included and you feel included, and that will last for a lifetime. We provide job readiness training, and we try to build skills to help to meet the needs of the workforce that our clients are trying to get into. We connect them to whatever community resources are available that will help them to build their skills and to get a hand up as opposed to a handout. We want to expose them to careers and as many job opportunities or even business opportunities to start their own business if that is their desire. So we start from wherever they are. And we start with job readiness skills, getting ready for the workforce. How do you present yourself for that first impression, that first interview? We have a men's closet that is a collaboration with Men's Warehouse to give gentlemen their first suit for that interview to present themselves well. We do mock interviews, all of the things that they need to get their foot in the door, so to speak, to get that first interview, to try to get that job. We also work with them on life skills, on career development, various assessments, and those kinds of things to lead them along the pathway to empowerment.
That's great. Thank you for that explanation, Laraine. So you're meeting people where they are. I love that. I mean, that's really what it's about, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you work with your folks, explain the difference, or just in your whole career background, I think, because you have such a nice diverse background, explain the difference in your opinion between equity and equality, and what does it mean to truly build an equal opportunity for all?
Well, it's kind of strange because at the Urban League, when we first started, our slogan was building for equal opportunity. And I think that a lot of people think of equality as the ultimate, but I kind of think of it as a continuum. So you start with equality, and that's more focused on the enforcement kind of requirements and fairness and equality in the workforce. But if you take the steps along the continuum, you end up with empowerment. And our current slogan is empowering communities and changing lives. And the way that you do that is moving along the spectrum of diversity, diversifying your workforce. And once you get a diverse workforce through the hiring process, then you want to retain that workforce. So you work on retention types of activities. Equality focuses, as I said, on more enforcement, but you want to move that organization and change the organizational culture along that spectrum after you hire them. Because once you hire someone and bring them into your workforce, that's the first step. So the next step is retaining them and making them feel comfortable and included. And that inclusion then leads to equity. Equity focuses on not just hiring, as you mentioned, not just hiring one person to say, I have a diverse workforce, but to change the organizational culture so that person feels included and a part of that workforce. It's like making them, taking them at the level that you receive them and providing whatever resources they need to become empowered. That leads to equity of the entire workforce. And I kind of think of it as the picture, some of you may have seen the picture where all different people are trying to see over the fence. And so equality is that they're all standing on the ground trying to see over the fence. But equity is a footstool that is appropriate for each person to be able to see over the fence. So if everybody got a 1 foot high footstool, the person who's 5'2" still may not be able to see over the fence. The person that's 6'5" would be way over the fence. But if you give the person that's 5'2" 6 foot high or 3 foot high footstool, they'll be able to see over the fence, but the 6 foot high person may not need a footstool at all. So you take them where you find them and give them the resources that they need to be able to see over the fence. That's equity.
Got it. So you've had a long history with the Urban League and helping people find employment. And, that is, there's a lot of parties involved there. You all helping, the folks that you're working with, really desiring that outcome, and also people who are willing to receive them in the workforce. So how have you seen the community as a whole improve and embrace your clients over the last 20 some years of your career? And what can we be doing better?
Well, I think from a business standpoint, businesses have improved over the years because many of them have moved from that equality spectrum along the diversity and inclusion spectrum. So they have included staff people that focus specifically on diversity and inclusion within their workforce to make sure that they retain those individuals. I think they've put forth a lot of efforts over the years to not only hire people, but to retain them and make them feel like they're a part of the group. They have, started, some of the larger corporations have started certain affinity groups that years ago, you didn't have that. You just kind of had to sink or swim once you got into the workforce. But there's still many improvements that are needed in terms of not only hiring, but changing that organizational culture and getting to true inclusion that would reach that equity. So when you have those affinity groups, do you recognize that some of the affinity groups may have additional issues because of the group that they belong to? We also need to look at people not just because of the group that they belong to, but as the individual. How can we make your experience more comforting? Many employers have employee assistance programs, but are those programs culturally sensitive to meet the needs of all the affinity groups that you have within your workforce? I read an article the other day about a progressive or up and coming company, and one of their Black employees was saying, I'm still not okay, because the weight of being the only one and overcoming the racism and all of the things that's happening in our society right now is a traumatic experience for that one individual. And that's why hiring just one person is not good enough. And trying to be much more inclusive in all aspects of the organization. All of your policies, have you reviewed them? Are they inclusive? The people that you do business with, do you have diverse vendors? Do you give minority businesses a chance to bid? Have you developed procedures so that they have an equal chance to bid on work? When you advertise with media, do you use Black media, Hispanic media? How broad are you in terms of the organizations and the vendors that you use, the contracts that you bid? All of those things are improvements that I think companies as well as our community at large needs to think about. It's not just the one thing that we see, the first step. We got to move along the path to true equity and inclusion.
That's right. Thank you for that. And those affinity groups are what I was referring to in my opening comments that are often referred to as EBRGs, or Employee Business Resource Groups. And those can be anything from, you know, a group of African Americans, Hispanic, military veterans. It can be all types of, you know, different affinities, because as you say, and this is going to lead right into the next question and last question for you for now, Laraine, people want to see people that look like them as leaders and mentors. So with this younger generation that we have coming into the workforce now and seeing what we're seeing in society today, talk to me about the importance of these young folks, these new employees coming into a workplace and seeing mentors and leaders that look like them.
I think that's just crucial. And being able to relate to someone else. I mean, I just look back at some of my experiences and, you know, some of my children's experience. It's very difficult to always be the first, to always break the ice. And that's a terrible burden that people have to live with. For young people, it's very important for them to see people who look like them. You can dream big when you see someone that's like you doing different things and being exposed to different things. If
Right.
you go all through school and you never see a teacher that looks like you, it makes you think that maybe people like me don't know very much or can't teach anybody different things. And children are very impressionable, and that follows them into the workplace, into
Right.
the future. So all of those role models and mentors are very important. And it also is important to make sure that your policies are inclusive and don't have an adverse impact on the people. Even if you don't have a lot of people in your workforce, by bringing in speakers or, you know, presenters or any opportunity, the Christmas party, having diverse food. I mean, there are all kinds of ways to incorporate inclusiveness and mentorship within the workforce.
All good points. Appreciate all that insight, Laraine. Stay on for questions, but we are going to shift over to Tom. So Tom, tell us a little bit about Holistic and their involvement, your involvement as the leader in diversity, equity, and inclusion for businesses.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Laraine, for all those great comments and ideas. I was writing them down, and I'll be sending hastily drawn up text messages to my team with all of those thoughts shortly. So we want to do a lot of what Laraine was talking about, but we want to put some science behind it. And so, you know, our advantage with companies is that we're able to come into the organizations and get a really good sense of where they are, where they're doing well and where they're doing poorly, where they have opportunities for improvement, what the employees are asking for, what the market will bear, all these types of things. And so what we try and do is try and put some data behind what people are feeling, what they're saying, and try and drive change within the organization. And so, you know, for us, any act, any part of the employee experience is at its core an act of inclusion, right? Anytime that you're asking people how you can make their life better, give them more opportunity, what we're really talking about is inclusion here. On top of that, though, in the last, let's say 5-7 years, the concepts around diversity and inclusion in the workforce have really taken off. And so, you know, things like Black Lives Matter, Me Too, a lot of the national conversations have forced these conversations front and center, which is great. And by the way, 150 years after they should have been front and center, but we're having them now. And so, you know, this is really fundamental. Our goal at Holistic is that diversity and equity and inclusion and fairness aren't things that you do from 3:30 to 4:30 during the DEI meeting on Thursday afternoon, but rather that they're woven intrinsically into everything that you think about, everything that you do, every activity that you undertake is either an act of inclusion or an act of exclusion, and you get to decide. And by the way, exclusion is a completely learned behavior. When we're born, we're totally inclusive. And I know because I have a bunch of children running around this house, so I hope you don't get to meet in the next 29 minutes. But, you know, along the way, we learn, unfortunately, all of these tools of exclusion. And now what workplaces are being asked to do and what they need to do is to create systems that actually keep those at bay so that people have the same level of opportunity. So to use Laraine's example of the step stool, which I think is a really interesting one, that's basically what's happening, is that the organization is taking on the responsibility for leveling the playing field that society made unlevel. And so when you bring the person into your company, you're taking on a lot of responsibility in terms of providing them a fair experience. And you're swimming upstream, right? Because all these pressures are coming against us being able to do that. So that's where we get involved, is we're able to measure a lot of these concepts and tools. We're able to help the companies make very specific actions that are going to allow them to level the playing field for their employees and create more opportunity and create more equity and advancement within the organization.
Good thoughts. Thank you, Tom. So just as maybe a follow-up question to that, as you go through and you assess different companies, whether small or large, and it might not matter whether what the size is, what do you see as some of the blind spots, some of the ahas that you can see that the employers, the owners just hadn't even thought of before?
Yeah, so I'll give you two examples. There's lots of them, but I'll give you two specific ones. So the first one is just how pervasive these types of inequities are. So like, if I were to tell you that women and people of color get paid less than their white counterparts, that would probably not surprise you. But if I told you that that inequity extended to how many meetings they get invited to, how frequently they accidentally get left off of an email chain, how much flexibility or lack of flexibility is afforded to them in terms of setting their own schedule. You know, these types of like day-by-day moments that might be a little bit shocking to you, to realize that the same inequity that you're talking about, that you, me, everybody is contributing to it on a moment-by-moment basis, totally subconsciously. So we have a lot of evidence of different places in the employee experience. Performance reviews are a great example, where there's a lot of inequity being introduced that people don't even know about. So I consider this to be like carbon monoxide. It's a silent killer, and by the time you know about it, it's already too late. We talk a lot about the pay inequity gap, 78 cents, 54 cents, whatever it is, it's shameful. But on a moment-by-moment basis, we're contributing to the same sorts of inequities with these types of actions that are happening. So that is pretty shocking to a lot of companies. Now, the second is more positive. The second one is that I think that we talk about wokeness as an employee benefit. And so this is a place to compete and to build a better workforce right now. The modern employee is interested in working at a place that is committed to the types of things that we're talking about, and that is providing resources, education, tools, insight to help them be a better resident, a better citizen, a better friend, a better spouse, a better coworker, a better human. And they really are. They care about that a lot more than they care about the 401k match. They really do. And we have a lot of data to prove this, that you go to somebody who's 29 years old and you say, I'm going to give you an extra 1.5% to your 3% contribution. You're not going to get to see it for 30 years. Their eyes glaze over. You say, I'm going to teach you to combat your biases and be a better human and find an outlet for all this passion that's bubbling up inside of you. And we're going to use our work time and our resources to do that. And it's going to make our company better. Now we're talking. So that's really exciting, right? Yeah. When you think about all these companies out there trying to compete, what am I going to do to compete? And it's just sitting right there. And it doesn't really cost you anything. I mean, it can cost you something, right? And obviously I'm in the business of it costing people something. But the point is that you can make a decision as a company to meet your employees where they are, and to start to provide them these sorts of insights, and they will appreciate it, and they'll be better employees, and they'll stay longer, and they'll work harder, and they'll be happier and more productive. And that's what you really want.
Yeah. So you may have already answered some of this with actually that last sentence or two, but let me just ask you a pointed question, because you've talked quite a few times about being data driven. And I think that's really important. I mean, I think we all feel good for making sure that we have inclusive workplaces, right? It's the right thing to do. We feel good about it. But tell me about the value that diversity of all types brings to an organization.
Yeah, you're right. It does feel good, and it is important, and it's necessary. And as I said earlier, I think it's actually, human. I think we're wired to be this way. But it is also good economics. It's a good business decision. Excuse me, I'm like right in the middle of talking, so I can't talk to you right now. I'm sorry.
Family first, Brand.
Okay, can you come in here, please? Because I'm talking to like 100 people, and so you can watch me.
I love it.
Sorry, my wife went to take my older son to his dance class, and so I'm alone with our twins.
Very good.
So hang on, I'm sorry, folks, 1 second. Can you go sit right over there in color for 1 second? Okay, after I'm done talking. Where was I?
We're talking about the value
of diversity
and diversity brings to the organization.
Yeah. So you're in this business of trying to pay people, the appropriate amount to get the most possible value out of them, for have them create the most opportunity for you to stay as long as they can, to provide as much opportunity for their coworkers as they possibly can. And each one of those levers that we're talking about in the employee experience is a function of sort of, at its core, how comfortable that person feels, how excited they are about what you're doing, how optimistic they are about the future of your company. And so if we can do things that are going to help them feel more comfortable, feel like they have more chance of advancing, feel like there's more people who look like them in the organization, you can have a profound impact on any one of those levers. So we always go to people and we say, how much does it cost you to turn over a position? And they'll say like, I don't know, $10,000, which is ridiculous, by the way. It costs you $100,000. It doesn't matter what business you're in, but it costs you a lot, right? In terms of lost institutional knowledge and time and opportunity, whatever. But let's say $10,000, and you're turning over 50 positions a year. You're paying $500,000 a year just in turnover. Now, if you can reduce that number by half, you've saved a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about all the opportunity that those folks are creating in your organization, it's very exciting. We always say at Holistic that you never stay up till midnight working on somebody else's idea. And the idea behind companies is that you're trying to create an environment where everybody has these passions and these tools that they can use to implement and to be successful as they go through the organization. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to help companies measure the impact of these efforts in terms of retaining and advancing their people. And then that's manifesting itself in more opportunity with the company.
Makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that, Tom. And again, like Laraine, hang around because we're going to have some more questions for you. But I do want to shift over to Eric. So Eric, my first question for you is kind of in two parts. So what makes Epic unique? And how does the value proposition that you bring at Epic shape diversity, equity, and inclusion in your organization?
Okay, good question. I think really basically when we're supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, one of the things when we bring new people on and we're talking to them, we're looking at a person. And again, we do this as an organization when we're serving over 400 people with disabilities, but we're also using the same method with the people that we employ. And I think it's very crucial on what we do is we look past color, we look past sexual orientation, we look past that, we look at the person. How can we bring resources for the people that we support to make them successful? And that's what we're always doing, whether we're getting together as a team to make sure that we're providing two things. On the first day of orientation, I go over the two things I want people to understand is that we provide purpose and value. just like all of us, we all want to have purpose and we all want to be valued. I always say this too. I said, if we can't get along as employees and support each other, we're kind of being hypocrites, because we're asking the community, educate the community, and have the community accept the people that we're trying to support. We have many programs that we have for our the people here at Epic, whether they're, we have 82 people that are actually placed with disabilities into the community here that have jobs, making a minimum wage, and being of value to the community, but also giving the value back to them as well. With our employees and our the people that we support, the key thing for us, and I think helps us help us bring diversity together, is listening to them. You know, even in supervisory leadership classes that we have for our supervisor here, I don't act like I know what it's like to walk in their shoes, because I don't, as well as they don't know what it's like for me. But to have the empathy and to listen to them and what resources can we bring to them, that's what's important to us. And I always have this my favorite saying always, labels belong on jars, not people. And that's what I always tell them. And we have as working with people with disabilities, we have an obligation to educate the community, but also to support our employees that help the people that we support as well.
Mm. You've been in the HR space and with Epic for quite a while now. What are some of the areas you're most proud of when you look at Epic and where they are as an organization, specifically related to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Absolutely. I think a couple of the things I will have to say is when I was the vice president over our residential program, for most of my career, probably 23 years was in the residential program, going into the communities, and we have approximately 16 group homes in the Peoria and East Peoria area. We weren't always welcome in some of the neighborhoods. And that, I just didn't understand that. Oh, the property value is going to go down, all of this. And I think how we've expanded and how we were able to build homes and integrate into a community. And there was one in East Peoria that we bought these lots, and we had to say it's not worth it. We don't want to bring the people that we support into this community right here. So we bought other ones, and then just educating the community as best as we could. And when we opened those homes, having the neighbors come and drop stuff off and welcome it. I think that was one of the best things. You talk about community support and stuff. It was awesome. For our employees, I think the best thing since I've been in human resource for the last 8 years is partnering up with community support here. And I liked what Laraine talked about with employee assistance program. We do have an employee assistance program that we work together to actually customize what our needs are. It is nothing for for having some of our employees. I'll have them come to my office. Well, my brother just got shot downtown and died. Mm-hmm. You know, for me, that's hard for me to relate to that person, but we worked with our resource management company, and they tailored that, and they brought the right people in to help them. That's good partnering. The other thing is for our direct care providers in our community or in our agency, some of them don't have we're funded by the state, and when we start, our starting wage is $10.35 an hour. I know people the people that we employ, they have to budget at least 20 hours to 25 hours overtime to make ends meet. That's not even trying to plan on emergencies coming up, So what we try to do is, okay, what can we do to help? What can we do? We're always trying to find resources. We're always trying to do things that will benefit them, as well as some people like, oh, I can't get healthy. And we have a self-insured program for insurance, medical insurance. And well, you need to take care of yourself. So I teamed up with Anytime Fitness, and over the last 2 years, they opened up a facility in our building here that's free to our employees. Now not everybody can do that. And I know I worked hard with this with Doug Fincher from Anytime Fitness. but I'm always looking for different things that we can bring to our employees to help them that otherwise they wouldn't have a chance. So, hey, if they can work out 20 minutes after work before they go home, that's a good thing. And that's a win-win for all of us. So those are things, is finding resources in the community and partner up. You can't be an expert on everything, you know, and you have to be able to go out and try to find those resources and bring what you can. I think being a not-for-profit, we get that, we understand that, and we know what it is, and we're always trying to think outside the box. What can we do different? What can we, not that Epic doesn't have their problems, not that it is, and I liked, Brian, what you said too, you know, you've been working on this for 20 years. We've been in the business for 70 years trying to educate people with the intellectual and developmental disabilities, and it's still an ongoing task for us to do.
Right. All right, one more question for you. I want to make sure that we can get a couple to our chat and have plenty of room for Joshua to close us up here. So my guess, given the topic of today, is that we have probably several HR representatives from different organizations on the line today, as well as, I would guess, some business owners, CEOs. When you look at where the responsibility for D&I lies within an organization, is that with HR? Is it with executive team? Tell me, give me a little bit of your thoughts there.
Absolutely not. It's not an HR. It's an organization. And it does start with your leadership. And it starts with your supervisor. And it is education. It's continuing education all the time. When you make decisions, and it cannot be just cut and dry or black and white all the time. You have to take in the circumstances of what happened. You have to look at that. You constantly have to be looking at your policies and revising your policies to make sure that they are working. And Epic is, I mean, I could get a policy going, get our personnel handbook going. I already making notes what we have to change, you know? It's a constant update. And it is every single person's responsibility in this agency to make sure that they're pushing that, for sure.
Well, so you heard it here first. For all the HR professionals that are on the line with us today, you can go to your boss and tell them that it needs to start with them, not with you, right? That's what Eric said.
It's all of us.
It's all of us. That's right. It is a team effort.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to do now, thank you, each of you. This is, man, this is something, it would be really easy to stay on here for hours. But I know that other people like Tom have kids that are waiting on them. So we said we're going to be from 4 to 5. We're going to try to keep that. So we're going to go to some questions that came through through text and chat. The first question is for you, Laraine, but anybody, any of the panelists, please feel free. Is there a specific age you believe that a program should start to inspire youth in the community towards what we're talking about today? So is there like a critical age time frame?
Well, we usually start the intervention at the middle school age, but I will say that the earlier you start, the better your chances of success. When you're doing any kind of prevention program, the younger you start and make that impression, the better your success, especially if you maintain it. If you hit and miss, you've really wasted your time and probably the young person's time as well. But if the younger you start, the better. So I would say 5th grade, 6th grade would be great. We have some prevention programs. We start with 8 and 9-year-olds, just trying to plant the seed of you know, getting on the right track. And it depends on who you're working with too. If they're, you know, true beginners, then that might be a little bit easier than if their prevention have already fallen off the track and you're trying to bring them back to a positive standpoint. So that would be my response.
You can teach a 3-year-old the concept of inclusion also in the work. Like,
well, and I really appreciate what you said before, Tom. I appreciate what you said before, is that we are born inclusive.
Right.
It's what we learn
learned behavior.
that's exclusive.
Yeah, I mean, if you walk up to a kid, a little kid, the notion that when you looked at the color of somebody's skin or their gender, some people would immediately determine whether or not they were capable to do a specific job, which happens all the time, by the way, it would be totally foreign to that kid. Like, that's insane to a child, right? So somewhere between that moment and when you became an adult, when we all became adults, you know, a lot of different events led to these sorts of biases and these sorts of inequities that have manifested themselves in this type of unlevel playing field.
Good point. I think we have time for one more question before we hand it back over to Joshua. And we've got almost 100 people on the line today. So if somebody would please put a question in the chat, that would be appreciated. And if not, we'll let one of the panelists, whoever might want to give any closing remarks you have. It appears that we don't have any other questions right now. So any closing remarks from you, Tom, Eric, or Laraine?
I would just say, you know, it is a responsibility of, as us in the community, as an employer, to make sure that we're educating. And I like what you were saying too. And it does start with your family. It starts with exposure. You know, when you see a person with a disability, when you see a person of color, and of ethnicity, it's okay. And I agree with Laraine, Laraine, it's younger the better, you know. And for me, I was very fortunate. My mother was a Sunday school teacher at Southside Mission. I knew nothing different, you know. So I think the earlier the better. And I think it's such a vital issue that we need to keep it at the forefront as an employer and as a family. Absolutely.
Very good. Well, I'll tell you what, Joshua, we are going to hand this back to you to wrap it up and put a nice bow on it.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Laraine. Thank you, Eric. And thank you, Tom. This was an incredible discussion. As Brian mentioned, we could talk for hours about this issue. You know, I am of the belief that this is the most important thing that we can do right now, is address the systemic inequities in our society, so that as we go through this pandemic and we come back on the other side, we can rebuild a culture and an economy that actually works for all of us. And these conversations are an important part of that work. So thank you to all the attendees that took time out of your day. Some of you took time out of your work day to participate here. And HR policy, and, you know, as Tom mentioned, you know, equal pay for equal work, equal access to opportunity, equal access to leadership and board placement. That plays a big role in what happens in our outside world too. It's not just what happens in the doors of our businesses. So this is super important work, and I am grateful to be a part of it, and grateful to all of you for your dedication to this effort. Just a reminder that we'll continue this conversation and have the chance to really dive deep during this year's Big Table, October 19th through the 22nd. It is a free event via Zoom. We will be using breakout sessions during the Big Table this year, so you'll have a chance to actually chime in and talk to people in smaller groups. So we look forward to that and hearing your voices, and continue to push this effort forward. As a newcomer to Peoria, I've been really impressed by the willingness of this community to lean into these difficult conversations. I think it's going to pay dividends in the future for us. I'd like to close by sharing a story with you all that I didn't intend to share, but Tom said something that sparked it for me. So I want to share this with you all. I'm going off book again, so Brian, forgive me.
Your show.
I moved into Peoria, moved to Peoria about 2 months ago, and I live on the north end of town, in what is admittedly not the most diverse part of the city. I am probably one of two Black families that I've seen on my side of town, and at the park that is in our community, we're the only Black family that I've seen at that park. My kids and my wife and I were at the park yesterday, and there was a family of kids playing who were not African-American. And I'm obviously a very light-skinned Black man. My wife is more brown than I am. My daughter is about my complexion, and my son is more brown. He's more my wife's complexion. This kid who was, I found out was 6 years old, as I'm talking to my wife, he says to me, why don't you and your wife have the same skin? And I paused, I was taken aback a bit. And I had several initial reactions to that question, but I recognized that he was a child, and I took it as an opportunity to educate him about the fact that people come in all colors and people can marry people of all different colors and have children of all different colors. And he said, I never knew that before. My mommy and daddy told me that only people with the same skin can be married. And Tom's point about the fact that kids are born so innocent and we have the opportunity to shape their worldview. It's a very important burden. And I think not a burden, but a very important responsibility for us to consider as adults in this community, and to consider our actions as adults, as business leaders, and how that may inform the worldview of the future. So I share that story with you to let you know the work is not done. The conversations need to continue. And we have an opportunity to change the future. And I agree with everyone that the younger we start, the more progress we can make. So thank you for the opportunity to share that story. I didn't intend to today, but it felt relevant.
Very good. Well, thank you, Joshua, for that. Tom, Eric, Laraine, thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure that everybody knows that Audrey Cam is in the background of all these. She and Sharnika, we owe a huge debt of gratitude for putting together these discussions. I think that as far as I know, this was the third of 3 planned discussions, but I see many more of these in our future, because I think that this is, again, this is just scratching the surface. The fact that we've got 100 business leaders on this call today, we're ready for change, and we need to keep talking about this. So thank you, everybody. I look forward to having more of these, and have a great night.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, everybody.